Good morning. Good morning. Season 6, episode 16, number 234, the Decoded Podcast. Chris, good morning.
I'm hungry.
Yeah, well, we were just talking about a lot of cool things, one of which was smoking meat. Yeah, I could go for a brisket sandwich right now. I don't think there's any of that available right now in KW at this time, but I'd go for some brisket.
Those peeps, those peeps started in the wee hours, and that brisket won't be coming out until like 2:00, 3:00, right?
Right. I mean, maybe there's somebody out there experimenting with
Mm-hmm.
brisket like I want to, and they're like, I've got some for you. It's going to taste
That'd
like
be,
your belt, but I've got some brisket for you.
that'd
I
be
don't know.
awesome.
Hey, how was your Christmas?
Christmas was good. Christmas was good. It was nice. It was chill. Food was good. I told you we did prime rib, so that was
Mhm.
that was cool. My that didn't help my glasses at all. Karen's parents came over, which was nice. It was very nice. I got one of the highlights besides the prime rib. Um, One of the highlights was, so Karen's dad is always he's a deeply contemplative dude. He's a retired Lutheran minister. Still reads a ton, writes a ton, and he's always kind of passing books my way, things that he and I often we will disappear um, to a corner and talk about philosophy and spirituality, and we'll kind of see someone peek in, and they're like, "Oh crap, they're still talking," and they just topped up their scotch glasses. So he and I have a history of doing that, which is really cool. I really value. I love that time with him. He's a wise dude. And but I've never given him a book. So this was the year that I found a book for him. And I love mentioned before, I love the On Being podcast. And one of the side hustles of the On Being podcast is Poetry Unbound, which is Padre Gotuma. He's a theologian. He's a poet. He's a crisis negotiator. I forget what his job is, but he does I forget what the job he is. It's something crisis mediator or something. So he released a book called Poetry Unbound. It's basically 50 poems with essays that he wrote and connections. And a large percentage of the poets are living poets. So these are all individuals that are still currently writing, still living, still creating. And I got a copy. For him, for my father-in-law. And what was cool about it, well, there's lots of things cool about it, but I don't know. So ordered it, didn't really think about the price point. It was a little more expensive than I thought. And when it arrived, it was actually a signed copy, which was like, that's really cool. Like inside, Padre had actually crossed out his type name and signed his name inside of it. I was like, okay, that explains why it was a little bit more expensive than the than the other version that I had ordered. So that as a centerpiece was fantastic. That moment of providing a gift that really felt like it felt like I sort of figured out a really thoughtful and like a rich gift for my father-in-law, and I enjoyed thinking about it, wrapping it, giving it to him, watching him open it, and the conversation we had afterwards. Like every part of the steps, it was just it was a beautiful process. And I would say that was second only to the gift that I got for Karen, and that was I mentioned to you getting a song written for her, and that was really cool too. So some excellent experiences. How's about you?
That sounds great. Don't you love it when those things come together? and work out perfectly. Um, the way you talk about the Christmas you just had, it's like that's the Christmas I always want to have now. I want to have those two or three kind of special moments, I guess you could call them, or meaningful moments. I don't have like it was good. It was I I really this Christmas and last Christmas I feel like I've really worked on taking a step back and just watching my kids and see kind of like the joy or the confusion on their face as they open gifts and then consider, what it is, what it's for, how it works. Um, if I could be selfish for a moment, I got a coffee maker for Christmas. I got a Keurig coffee machine, and like that's bringing us tons of joy right now. Just because we're experimenting with different things. I've got my wife got me different coffee and some tea and some syrups, and it's like I'm experimenting, right? Because I've never been a coffee drinker. So growing up, I joke, but it's not really a joke that my father would say to me, never drink coffee because it'll stunt your growth. That was his way of basically trying to keep me away from that vice, right? Um, Geez, I wish he would have said something about food. I'd be 100 pounds lighter if, he gave me some advice about don't eat too many carbs. It'll shrink you or something, but he never did that. Um, so this coffee thing, like I don't want to focus. I've tried to step back at Christmas time. I try to step back and just have a broader perspective of what's happening in front of me and why it's happening. Part of that is the kids getting things that they may have asked for because they would like to have in their life. Some of it is um, we gifted them things that they didn't ask for and don't know why it should be part of their life. Like it's entertaining to me. As a husband, I'm learning how to be more thoughtful when gifting things to my wife or my kids, particularly my wife. And she seemed happy with the couple of things that she didn't buy for herself at Christmas time for herself, because that happens. Like she's the architect of Christmas in this house. I'm not going to pretend like she kindly gave me some she's like, this is what this kid wants. It's I have no understanding of this realm, like sports stuff or whatever. Can you please take care of it? Boom, I'm on it. It's done. Let's go. um so there's that. It's like teamwork, but mostly she's the architect, she's leading the show. So she'll purchase things that she feels she needs or wants, and then like they're for her, but they may appear as though they came from somebody else, which I'm learning quickly that this happens in many families. It's not just mine. So for me to step up and to actually listen to what she's telling me about like her needs and her wants throughout over time, I was able to provide a couple of things that appeared to bring her joy and that she was truly surprised to receive. So that's kind of fun for me. But the Keurig coffee machine, I went from this little Tassimo that was like hidden in a corner of the kitchen. So when I decided I wanted to jump into coffee, I said to her, "Okay, listen, I want to get into coffee a little bit." And here's my coffee thing, like one a day. I wake up, I work out, I have one coffee, and then I move on with my life. And I try to drink the coffee by a certain time of day so that the caffeine's out of me when it's time for bedtime. So there's a little bit of I've been digging into the science a little bit and learning more about me and who I am and how it works for me. So as you can imagine, I go from this little Tassimo thing that there aren't many options with Tassimo, like for the pods you can buy or whatever. So I've been just living with a couple of different things and a bunch of syrups to give it different taste profile or whatever. So you can imagine I open this Keurig and it's like this thing's the bomb compared to what I was using. And so anyway, Christmas was good in that it was good for me in that this business of stepping back, having a greater perspective, and I'm really digging like I don't need anything. And if there's something I want, I get it. I'm not waiting till Christmas, right? Like I'll just go out and get what I feel I need or want. And so I'm turning into that guy when people say to me, "What do you want for Christmas?" I'm like, "I don't want anything." And then they all look at me like, "You can't say that." And I'm like, like I don't know. So the coffee machine was a nice surprise, but if it wasn't gifted to me at Christmas, I wouldn't be out there buying one right now. I'd still be using my Tassimo, drinking my McCafe with a couple of different syrups that I like. That's just me, but I'm learning, right? I'm learning. So funny thing, and then I want you to jump in. There are a couple of dads on the hockey team that are really into their coffee. Listening to them talk about coffee and the way that they operate and their understanding and their understanding of not only like the coffees in front of them but the history behind some of it is it's fascinating to me. And so when I got to Keurig, I took a picture and I sent it to both of them. I'm like, look at this, boys. Like I'm in the game. I'm in the game. And my wife bought me all this different stuff to try. I've got these syrups. I don't know whether they're into the syrups or not. I think they're not. I think they're black drinkers. But I'm like, not me. I want to drink it and make it taste good. And um, strangely enough, I have gotten close to black. The closest I've gotten to black is just one sweetener in my coffee. That's the closest I've gotten because it gives me the flavor that I want. I like it. Um, but anyway, it was just funny. They responded like, "Oh my God, another coffee snob in the making," and so it's fun to play with, and I enjoy it. So that was Christmas over here. We all got along. We um, we had turkey dinner. It was delicious. The kids were laughing at me as I was cutting the turkey with my electric knife, which I
Brrr,
got many years ago
brrr.
for
Yeah.
Christmas. Yeah. And I only pull it out for that, right? And I don't even need it, but it's fun. So it's like, yeah, anyway, that was my Christmas. Hey, we've got some listeners. If they want to share about their Christmas and how it went, we'd love to hear. So jump in if you want.
This year was the year too that we officially, and I probably could have done better with the timing, but that whole conversation around, if there's something that we want, we go and get it. Um, that has impacts, right? That has actually pretty noticeable impacts, I think, if you give it the time, because the accumulation of stuff is a like there's a what's the word? Like if you choose to really scrutinize your purchase behavior, like there's more to the cost than just buying things and losing money, right? The the adornment and the sort of like the clutter and the everything that's kind of gathers around you by getting stuff has become like personally fascinating, like for me to sort of really question why it is I'm desiring things, like why is it that I want a thing. And I'm fortunate in that my brain in this particular case keeps me frugal, because I can very quickly, as soon as I get a craving, I can sort of back myself off it because my brain hyper analyzes it. And I'm just like, okay, brain, I'm going to let you do the analysis of it. And I won't go there. I'll wait until you figure it out. So it's like, it's processing, processing, processing. So this was the year where I kind of shared out that thinking, um, and said sort of flat out, like, I don't want anything. and, and, uh, and I think, by saying those words out loud, there's potential there's some small potential harm, right? Because some people, like, I know my love language is kind of like it's cooking. So if someone actually told me, I don't want you to cook for me, like if they told me that I don't want you to cook, and even the nights where I don't have to cook, like I still feel compelled, like I want to share that, I want to do that. So I think, in our case, my family's case, me saying I don't want anything, it all of a sudden kind of puts the well, it sort of, I think it puts in question the nature of the relationship, because all of a sudden you're sort of saying, I've changed because I get it last year. I received a bunch of stuff and I didn't say anything at the time. And sometimes I think that change, when it's like, regardless of how, whatever sort of epiphany level you may have, like just suddenly you just don't want stuff. That's fine. That's fine. Absolutely fine. But other people don't change at my speed. So for me to suddenly say that, and someone's ordered something back in the summer and it was going to take 3 months to arrive, well, that makes things kind of complicated. So there was a certain element of kind of projecting forward, as in, okay, I get it, cool, we'll work more towards that next year, but this year, with this thing's already been ordered. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. I said, but just moving forward, more experiences, less stuff. And that worked. It worked out great. That was why I kind of went the route of the book for my father-in-law. That was for his birthday. That wasn't Christmas. Sorry, his birthday falls very close to Christmas. Um, and why I went the route of the song for Karen, because I wanted it to be something that had like, to try and figure out what's timeless is really difficult, because there's things that even I have that I would say I loved 5, 6 years ago that I don't have the same love. I'm more in that nostalgic kind of love of it, and I'm in that space of, well, do I get rid of it now? Now that I've spent some time loving it, is it okay to get rid of this thing? Um, and to sort of figure out what how other people move through that path. Um, like, it's cool sometimes, I'll say Karen and I, for them to Karen to sort of pull out something that I bought for them like a decade ago when we were first dating. Maybe it's a piece of jewelry, maybe it's an art piece. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, you're still gaining happiness from it. It still creates joy for you. Um, but that made Christmas a little bit complicated. Aiming for experiences is not a simple transition. It's not, especially when you're intentionally moving towards experiences. It's not easy to do. Um, and to sort of, I was talking to somebody at work, and they said, like, so what do you how another person, that they were talking about the problems of buying gifts for their husband, and I said, yeah, I've kind of become a little bit of that person too. Like, I don't openly say, here's the thing that I want. I just kind of bring it back to the family and say, I'm going to buy this thing. We're good. Finances are good. So we can kind of afford. You cool with that? And if they say no, not yet, I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep it on the list. Like, I kind of opportunize it away from actual specific events, birthday, Father's Day, whatever. Um, so I was talking to this a colleague, and she was saying she's having a hard time figuring out what to get her husband. She said, like, have you done your shopping for your spouse? I'm like, yeah, it's done. And she's like, oh, what is it? And I said, well, I won't tell you what it is. I said, because I don't like to tell that to people until the person experiences it first. She's like, you're weird. I'm like, that's okay. I don't mind being weird on that. But I was sort of expressing to her that it's like there's not a bunch of stuff coming to my spouse. And my colleague said, like, oh, that's risky. I'm like, well, maybe. Like, I said it might be. I said, but to try and move away from all that extra. She's like, oh, no, 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 I get it. But then she personalized. She said, like, if my husband kind of went that route and didn't get me, like, there's a volume of expectation, or an expected volume of things to be given, they would have had a problem with that. Now, they also kind of went on, they kind of have to get a volume of stuff like that because often their husband doesn't get good stuff. So it's like they need to get, like, he's got to be buying me 15 to 20 things because I know I'm going to return at least half of them. I'm like, oh, okay. I said, well, I'm just doing one thing. And she looked at me, she's like, what? I'm like, one thing. She's like, that's risky. I'm like, I know. I said, I'll have to get back to you after the new year, like whether or not that worked out well or but that's I think when you move towards experiences, that's the zone you're in all of a sudden, right? Because you don't have the buffer of like, here's your 10 different things that you can open in succession. If that one thing is the thing, like a 50-50, right?
I hear you. I'm in the middle of that. In terms, what I mean by that is, there are the 5 or 6 things to open. Then there's the experience. It's like, I want to move more in that direction because those experiences are, or can be, so rich. So like, I told you, right? Like I told you what I gave my wife as an experience and gave the kids an experience as well. That didn't, you know, thank goodness my wife took care of the other aspects. And I got to
Mhm,
tell you, bro, like I've never been so excited before to like get new socks. And Sarah got me this coat and I was like, this is awesome. Like I was that dad where I literally threw on the socks and I threw on the coat and I'm walking around the house with this coat on and everybody's looking at me like, what are you doing? I'm like, I love this. So I'm going to start wearing it now. Um, I don't know. Things have shifted. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's that midlife thing or whatever, but things have shifted for me around Christmas. Um, I really do my best to soak in like the fact that everybody's talking about being better and helping others and using that all year long, not just at Christmas time. So it's like I'm being placed back in my charger at Christmas time and getting the energy and the boost I need to get through the rest of the year. And interesting thing. So I'm going to go spiritual here for a second, if
mhm,
you don't mind, but like, Christmas mass I watched online, with the church that I attend, and one of the things that the priest was talking about at the very end of the mass, which is hilarious, because I'm listening the whole time, and I'm taking away from the readings and what he has to say about them and stuff, and the season. But right at the very end, he said something, and it doesn't matter like what he said, but he said something, and I was like, I just made this connection, like what he just basically what he was saying was, you don't have to wait until Christmas to find the gift that goes with it all. It can come every day. And I was like, yes. And I sent him an email about that. And I said, what you said at the end is how I've been living over the last year. I'm not waiting for things to happen anymore. I'm going out and making things happen. If I want to be happy, I'm going to do things to be happy. If I want to learn something new, I'm going to go out and start working on figuring out what to do and how to do it, where to start, and like put together a little bit of a plan just to keep me honest and to keep me aware. I'm seeing too many people living for moments in time. They're depending on that moment. And if they get to that space and it doesn't meet their expectation, then they feel let down. And then they're dealing with a whole other issue. And it's really been all this stuff is connected to the training I had and the work I did many years ago with my counseling degree. And it's kind of awakened me, to just the importance of how people live each day and the micro decisions we make that impact the macro. And I think people think it's the other way around. It's all the macro that influences the micro. And sometimes it works that way. But I really think that a lot of people ignore the little things that mean a lot in the end. And so I'm kind of like operating that way these days. And my perspective is my that's kind of my perspective as I'm going through experiences and continuing my learning and talking about it and reflecting on it. New socks. I love it. I love the socks.
Socks are a good choice.
Sarah knows, man. She knows.
Yep.
Have you there are memes out there of of like it's like a the best ones have been the cartoon ones. There's a guy standing near the tree and he's wearing boxers that look like they've been demolished, and it says something like just 2 more days until Christmas until you can get your new boxer shorts. Um,
Yep.
because it's a joke, but it's not a joke. Some people wait for they get their new underwear and socks at Christmas, and then they get rid of all their old stuff and they start out with their new stuff. So
Hmm.
it's funny. It's funny when you can see some of yourself in that. So I
Yes.
enjoy that too, for sure.
I think that's a critical part of of noticing when you've kind of moved to a new stage in your gift needing. There's something about that where you can sort of look at that simple thing, whatever it is, and just kind of go, "Yep, yep, that's exactly what this moment needs."
Dude, I have to
So
tell you,
tell me.
sorry to interrupt.
No, no, do it.
Um, I hit a flow state the other day that was amazing, and
Tell me about it.
I was completely aware of it. So my oldest, I had to drop him off for some training that he had to do for some volunteer work he's going to be doing this winter, and it was one of those things. It was like he had to be out. He had to be at the training for 3 hours, and I said to my wife, "I'm not dropping him off and coming home." And then going back, like I'm not doing that. So she's like, "Okay, what are you gonna do?" I said, I'm going to grab my laptop. I've got some work. I've got some things I need to do on the laptop. So I think I'm going to just hit a McDonald's, the closest McDonald's to where I'm dropping them off. And I'll get a drink and a dessert or something. I'll pay for the space, right? I'll pay for the Wi-Fi and then I'll work. So she's like, why don't you do Starbucks instead? I was like, is there one close by? So as we're talking, she's looking on her phone. She's like, "There's one. It's even closer to where he's going to be than the McDonald's. It's perfect. You get whatever beverage you want." And here I'm thinking, yeah, it's going to be 6:30 at night. I'm not drinking coffee, right? I, I, I don't want a coffee, but anyway, long story short, drop him off, make sure he's good. Go into the Starbucks. I got a tea. I know it has caffeine in it, but anyway, I get my tea and I sit down, crack open the laptop. I put some calming music in my ears, and bro, I was in that. I knew it. I was like, "Oof, here it is. I'm in the middle of it." And then I let my fingers do the walking and the talking, and it was an amazing experience. The whole, if you will, the whole stereotype of the coffee shop, and there are people all around me chatting or whatever, and I'm in a different place. I'm in a different zone. Not only did I get a lot of work done, I I was able, like, my work was malleable. It wasn't just like stringent on one thing. It was like one thing, but it was like I knew what my focus was and I kind of had a goal, but how I was going to get there was totally open. Right? Like I wasn't so stringent on how to get there because I still feel like that would have just been boring. I wouldn't have gotten into that flow state. But the combo of the music and the time to play and to think and then to do was amazing. Now, here's the cool thing though. I'm not having had that experience. I'm not now thinking I must replicate that every time because as you and I have talked about, I can never go back to that actual experience. It came, it went. I've been in flow state before, so I get that. I can make that happen. But it was a moment. It was such a productive and creative moment in time. I was feeling good when I picked up my son. He was all like, "Dad, you look pumped." I'm like, "That's because I just did some really cool work in a cool space. Everything just seemed to work. Um, and then I listened to him tell me about his experience, which was kind of funny. 16-year-old at a training with other kids his age. I'm like, "Did you make any friends? Did you meet anybody?" He's like, "No, I didn't talk to anybody. We just kind of, I went through the motions." I'm like, "Oh, geez, okay." You know, I kind of, I said to him, I was kind of hoping like you'd connect with one or two people, and I could tell he was like, "No, that wasn't the point of this." And I'm like, "Okay, well, this is something you'll learn how to." I'm not. I kind of laugh too because sometimes I go to things and I'm not interested in connect. I'm just interested in soak up what it is that I need to know and do. But being 16, he's a typical teenage boy in that, his mom and I are like, "Hey, maybe you'll meet a couple of new people." And he's just looking at us like, "I'm not going to meet people." And we're like, "Yeah, but it'd be nice if you met some new people and made some friends outside of school or whatever." So it was a good evening. But I just wanted to share that flow state. Um, eh, I get into it more when I'm doing creative work with like video and stuff. I find that reading your poems lately have been kind of, some of your poems, they don't work for me. I read them, I'm like, I either don't understand, or I know that there's depth, but I don't know what led you to the depth. So, but then others just like click and help me enter into a phase where then I start to think creatively based on your words, and I kind of understand some of your process. So let's see what is to come. Let's see what is to be created from these flow states that I enter into. I know you get them too. I'm not sure how they play out with you. If you want to share, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that because I don't think you and I have ever really talked about this.
Yeah, I I definitely get into it. I think what I'm getting better at doing is remaining open to, like, I'm big on novelty, and I know, and sort of noticing in my environment when something has changed, and then kind of, once my brain goes, well, that's different, it spends quite a bit amount of time parsing out what's actually different and what's still the same about it, right? And there's a funny kind of dynamic there where you entertain both sides of that something is different and something's the same at the same time. That's where a lot of that's where my flow state exists. And often there's pieces, if I speak specifically from poetry, there's pieces that kind of fall out of me really quickly. And I think that's probably a reflection of me needing to hold on to the idea that I committed to just in noticing. So I'm kind of picking a very specific thing to write about. And then there's others where, I'm doing the writing. And as I'm actually doing the writing, the path of the writing reveals itself. And I've had this where pieces have completely pivoted. I was like, well, that's not what I noticed, but that's the piece that I made. And then there's other pieces that I haven't been able to finish because I've actually lost touch with, I guess you would call the flow state of it. Like, I actually, the feed just got severed. I get a glitch. So I have part pieces that I've never finished. And I think that's part of the when I become too dependent on the flow state to actually produce something, because there's a high risk that I'm going to lose the idea is just too vibrant, too active, too energized. There's no way I'm ever going to capture its entirety. And sometimes I pick the wrong part of it. So even as the idea, like, there's a piece that I wrote about my grandfather, and it started from a memory of him walking in the room and noticing like his pockets just full of stuff. I think the title of it is something like "A Place for Precious Things," something like that. A purpose for precious things. And then as I and when I had that memory, there were like okay, Clough, here's the flow. And it was just like boom, 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 boom. Like I was getting all these snapshots that kind of happened around it. I've been in that moment before, and I've picked the wrong snapshot to start writing from. And if I was given 7 glimpses at this memory, I picked the wrong one, and I'm only able to capture in words 2 of the 7. In this particular case, I was quite aware of, I'm picking an arbitrary number, that there were 7 different snapshots that were essential to writing this piece about my grandfather and precious things, centered on the fact that he always had a ton of stuff in his pockets. And I picked the right moment that actually, it was like Tetris. I just picked the pieces in the right order and I was able to capture them and put together a piece that when I finished it, I was like, that's the memory. There it is. I was actually able to grab it. And then there's been other times where I noticed this whole thing and I picked the wrong starting point. And I get a cool, maybe one stanza or like a small part of it, but I feel like I can't complete. I can't make it to the end of the piece. The one thing I will say is I've stopped being frustrated by that. And I've recognized that that is part of my flow state. Like that is what happens. If I choose to exist in flow state, I also choose that if I continue that water analogy, that I might not actually keep up with the actual current, and I got to choose to kind of go ashore. It's also why aware of that, and also aware of being able to feel like I can rely on my skills, that I can actually swim in that current, is why I'll often put up on Instagram, throw me a prompt, I'll get you a piece. And I really try to deliver those pieces by the end of the day. And, last week when you said, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. And my buddy Les, I worked with him back in the day, like he throws some pretty out there. He's very philosophical, bit of a flower child. Like he's kind of out there in the 60s vibe. So the shit he gives me, I'm like, okay, how do I do something on demand? So I'm entirely leaning on skill sets and having to imagine a memory. So that's a totally different style there, but that's where my flow state is dependent on, it's based on a capacity to just use my pure skill. So I'm very much aware. Like in those, often when I write poetry, dude, like I'm not like, I'm noticing rhyme, I'm noticing enjambment, I'm noticing metaphor, simile. When I'm writing, asking for a prompt, I'm having to artificially go there. Like I'm having to lean on, can I create a rhyme here? Why is this a rhyme? Okay, that works as a rhyme. I'm counting rhythm, beats. It's a far more technical way to write. And both sides are really good. They kind of feed each other. And it's funny, for the most part, I like the pieces that have come out of these, like Clough right now, command moments. I like those. I like that. I like some of those pieces. I'm probably running as successful on both sides, to be honest. But the feel of writing and the feel of the flow state in those two different sides is very, very different. I'm still finishing the race. In one, I feel like I'm being carried along by the spirit of the actual art, and I just have to sort of like keep up with it. It's a little bit, it's effort. I feel like the effort is in keeping up with the idea and just sort of staying in conversation with it. The other side, where I'm told what to write, I'm entirely aware of the muscle of creation, the technical side of that creation. No greater chance that a good piece is going to actually result. It's just a totally different awareness. So
I'm
let me say one more thing. The one thing that I love though about asking someone to tell me what to write about is the surprise that results. I get surprised on both sides. As I said, when I write poetry, sometimes the actual poem reveals itself as I'm working it. There's an extra layer to that if it's not starting with me. So you give me something to write about, or someone in my socials gives you something to write about. Prior to that exact moment, I had no clue what I was going to be given, but I still feel the duty to deliver. So I like that part of it. It's like, crap, go time. Let's do it. Let's do it. Right. And I get a little bit of that anarchy adrenaline rush, which I told you before. I like that. I like that.
So you've lit up 2 things in me. The first one is I would love to try that idea of someone giving me a prompt and me making a video. Uh, no holds barred. You give me the topic and I just create 30 seconds, 40 seconds, nothing crazy, but taking an idea and connecting it to video. I would love to try that challenge. So I'm going to see what I can do about that. Um, the other thing is when you were talking about your grandfather and having stuff in his pockets, I just got this wave of this visualization of how awesome pictures would be, photographs of your grandfather, like a an essay in pictures of your grandfather, his pockets, what's in them. uh, that would be so cool. That would have been so cool, you know. um, because when you were talking about that, so here's the thing, right? Here's the creativity flowing. You say that I have visualizations, I make connections. Like my wife always talks about, not always, but she refers to being at church with her grandfather. And, as mass is happening and kids are getting antsy, he reaches into his pocket and pulls out like a butterscotch candy and just hands it over to her. And she knows that her parents are not happy with him, but he's grandpa. He doesn't give a shit. He's going to do whatever it is he wants to do, right? And my wife telling me he always had butterscotch candies in his pocket. And like at the worst time possible to give a kid that is when he would do it because he's grandpa. He's going to do what he wants. And mom and dad not liking what grandpa's doing. Like I can see it. I can see it in my mind what's happening there, and then I can play with that. It also reminds me of when I was young and my grandmother, my mom's mom, was around. I remember a couple of things about my grandma. One of them was, for some strange reason, she would always give me Fig Newtons. I don't know where they came from or why she even had them with her, but she had Fig Newtons. And I remember her giving me Fig Newtons. I don't eat a lot of Fig Newtons, but when I do, it takes me back to a really cool place with my grandmother. And I do not have a lot of memories of my grandmother, of me being with my grandmother. And so I'm grateful for the ones I have. And I don't know is Fig Newtons the name of the company? I don't know, but they'd be happy to know that they're in my mind, right? And
I think I
it's not
think
their
that
marketing or their branding, it's my
yeah,
grandma.
I think it is. I think it is the kind of like
I'm gonna
both
check.
the name of the of
The
the
company?
of the well, no, they're
Oh,
Christie.
Christie.
Mr. Yeah, Christie makes
Good
Fig
cookies.
Newton. Yeah, they do Fig Newtons.
Oh,
But
dude, sorry. I
no, no,
it says Newtons are Nabisco trademarked. But oh, sorry,
interesting.
Fig Newtons are the most popular variety. They are produced by, oh, then it tells you how they're made. It says they're produced by Nabisco.
Was it
But I
Nabisco?
thought I thought well, anyway, your Christie reference, that's what it
Could
says
be.
on Wikipedia. I don't know for real.
Yeah, yeah. No, so okay, no, that's cool. The thing I was going to ask you, the thing I was going to ask you about is you're mentioning that this Fig Newtons. Um, Figs in themselves, is that
Oh,
culturally significant to
yes.
you? So tell me
Yes.
about that, because I know that for some cultures, figs are representative of celebration, of fortune, of like there's harvest connections there. There's a seasonality to it. There's also like an idea of treasure to the fig. Like it's sort of like royalty in the actual hierarchy of foods. um, and it makes me think about what you have access to. So when you say your grandmother here or grandmother somewhere else? Where was grandmother when they were giving you this?
It was here. So I lived in Ottawa and grandma lived with my uncle in Montreal. So
Hmm.
whenever they would come to Ottawa, I would see my grandma, or I guess whenever we go to Montreal, I'd see my grandma. But I don't remember a lot of those opportunities happening.
Hmm.
But you're right about figs. Now that you say it, because here's the thing about Middle Eastern culture and me in particular. When I was a little kid and in the culture, I didn't particularly appreciate any of it or like it, right? Because it seemed to me like I was always looking out at everybody else and never really focused in and appreciating what was in front of me. I now appreciate what was in front of me and turn away from what is outside. But what are you going to do, right? That was just me as a kid. So there were, particularly at Christmas time and New Year's, there were figs and there were nuts and raisins and dried fruit. They were just kind of out for people to munch on, and I didn't like it. Like, I'm like, who wants to eat a friggin' fig when I could have a chocolate chip cookie that I never had, right? Because my parents didn't buy that stuff. But they'd be like, "Oh, you want sweets? Go grab a fig." It is only now that I'm much more aware and connected. Now, trust me, I'm not going out and buying figs for fun, but I can appreciate I can appreciate the sweetness that they give you. This was the sugar that we were going to get, right? So, very interesting that my grandma would modernize with the fig Newton. Um, you know what? They probably weren't even fig Newton. They were probably they were they they were the cookie, but coming from like an ethnic store, right? Not
They're
from
like
Loblaws.
Tom Hootens. Yeah,
Tom
the
Hootens.
Tom Hooten Fig Newton. Yeah, I like that. I like that. Can I read you that poem that I wrote about my grandfather? You kind of lit me up.
Yeah, man, go for it.
You want to hear it? So I found it. It's called A Place for Precious Things. My grandfather pulls his hand out of his pocket. Quarters, nickels, 50-cent pieces, and a chicken bone lay in his palm. In my memory, his arm could disappear into his gray slacks up to the elbow. I imagined infinite space in that pocket. Money or magic could always emerge. When he enters rooms, he jingled and jangled. When he walked, his pockets swung out sideways, pendulous and dented door frames. When he sat down, it sounded like sacks of treasure crashed against the wooden chair. One time he pulled out a pocket knife, a roll of pennies, a wrinkled cigarette butt, a folded, faded Polaroid, and a gold tooth. He picked the tooth from the miscellany, put it in his left pocket. The rest he poured back into the right. Napoznech, for later, he said. He did this often. Sometimes he would separate a mint, another time it was a matchbook. For later, like an enchantment, and into the pocket it disappeared with my fascination every time. He could have
When
pulled out a cherry lozenge. It could have been um it could have been like mints. He liked like hard candy mints. Um Never, very rarely it was actually money, like paper money, but so much change in that dude's pockets. So
Okay, so there was a chicken bone in his pocket once?
yeah, I thought so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because part of it is I have these memories flashes. It could have been something that he it could have been we had rabbits in the backyard. It could have been like from a rabbit. I just remember it being a small bone. It could have been part of the bone from like a turkey. Like he was big on doing the
Okay.
wishbone, right? But it was a bone. There was like a bone there in the pocket.
This business of infinite space. Wow,
Yeah.
reminds me of the Harry Potter episode where Hermione Granger brought the her bag and did like a magic spell on it so that it was like it was just yeah, it was a never ending space to keep
Hmm.
things.
Hmm.
Um that's a great poem. When did you write that?
October.
Okay,
This past October. So it's a this year poem.
very cool. Very cool. I can it the visualization for me is stunning for that one. Sometimes I have a difficult time visualizing things I read, but your poem, I can see it. I can see it. I even now this is your mother's father,
Yeah, yeah,
the same dude who looked down at you and was like, "He's
yeah.
breathing, so we're good."
He's good.
Yeah,
He's okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's awesome.
For later, for later, for later.
For later, yeah.
Yeah,
I told my wife that story, eh?
yeah.
She was like, "Well," she was asking for details. I'm like, "I got nothing. I'm just telling you what Chris told me, that there's a picture of him the next day just sucking on his bottle, like probably still whacked out of his mind." She's like, "Holy cow." And it was funny because we were thinking, like, in real life when that happens, nobody's calm. Like, your mom was probably just ready to lose her friggin' mind, right? Because she's like, "Is my kid gonna die? What's gonna happen to my kid?" While your grandfather's just looking at you like, number one, he drank my drink. He shouldn't have done that. That's my drink. Number two, he's breathing. Like, what's the fuss about, kind of thing. So, um, great story now. Not so great when it was happening, I'm sure. Now, do you know, was your father upset? Was he nervous, or was he more on the side of your grandfather? Like, Chris will be fine. Do you know? Or
I have
do you,
no. I have no. I have nothing.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I know it from. I know it from its mythical proportions, as in, right? Like it was. This is what happened. This is what. This is how we reacted.
Hmm.
Um, but I have no deeper understanding from anyone else in my family. So,
Crazy.
mhm,
Um, Really cool thing. We had three listeners at one point. Now we have none.
that's okay.
They're like, we got to go live our lives, I guess, eh?
Yeah, I respect them for that.
Oh yeah,
That's okay.
I got no issue with that either. Um, which reminds me, I need to check in with some people. Um, I'm going to name them, particularly Carlos. I wished Carlos a Merry Christmas at Christmas, and then he responded, haven't heard back from him. I should really reach out and see what's going on with Carlos. Um, the last time I talked to Irma about the podcast, I was in the principal's office and we were there for a meeting, and I said something to her, and oh, she was kind of bothered with me that I hadn't done the sandwich thing that I was going to do with the principal, to just leave my sandwich out of the bag and on a table somewhere in the office and see what the principal would do with it. So she was kind of giving me heck for that. And I was like, have you listened to the podcast lately? She's like, no, I haven't, or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, make sure you do it at night because it helps put people to sleep. So take advantage of the podcast. And then, I've been seeing Ramona pop up here and there on Facebook. She was wishing people a Merry Christmas. I wonder what Ramona's up to today. Anyway, some people to check in with as time goes on, eh?
Yeah, for sure. What's so to that end, so today being New Year's Eve is tonight. So what's that going to look like for you and the fam?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I know that this morning in a message you sent me, you were asking that question.
Mhm.
Um, I love when you send me messages and ask me questions and I can't get back to you at that time. And I always think, I hope that I'm able to remember to answer that question later. We don't have a set we don't have like a set practice in my house around New Year's. And if we do, I'm not aware of it. So either I've not been listening or paying attention all these years, which is very possible for me. Um, there is a football game on, so I'm wearing my Michigan shirt. So Michigan's playing today at 4 p.m. So we would be watching the Michigan game, but that'll be over by 7. We have some plans for finger foods for dinner. My wife wants to make a chocolate pie for dessert. She's been talking about. Um, you were saying in your message, do people here stay up till midnight? The response is no, we don't. I suspect. My wife and I will be in bed before 10 p.m., and so will my youngest. I suspect my oldest will still be up at midnight, but I don't think he's staying up to to say, "Hey, Happy New Year." I think he's just it's part of his schedule these days. Um, he'll go to bed a little bit after that time. That's it for us. I know you do a cool thing. You want to share what you guys do at your place?
So we've kind of fallen into this. We each pick a movie. So 8 hours worth of movies we got to get through. And then we tend to do first and second dinner. So first dinner will be Popeye's chicken. And then depending on how we're feeling, sometimes second dinner is that late night pizza. And late night pizza, I think, became more of a thing. I think we've done it 2 years in a row, the late night pizza, but it's because I think the 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I actually was really hungry, like at 11 p.m. I'm just like, okay, and we still had like Avengers Endgame to watch or something, right? I'm like, man, I need something to occupy my brain, so I just ordered Pizzaville. And for whatever reason, like it was a short delivery. They got it here in a half an hour. I'm like, perfect. So we're like in just finishing hour one of Avengers Endgame, and pizza's there. Like that's perfect, right? Perfect for us. So that's how we roll. That's how we roll. It's nice how this year it falls on the Saturday, Sunday. So I know, being teachers, we got a lot of time off right now. We do. But even for folks, this, having it on the weekend creates the opportunity for others to kind of also have that long kind of wake up tomorrow, whatever that looks like when we hit January 1st. Yeah, that's the deal. That's how we're bringing it in, dude.
Very cool. I like this idea of a second supper. So, so if we were to stay up late, I would love to suggest that because we are an early supper family. So
Mhm.
maybe a second supper is cool. I wish that I could get Popeyes today, but I've said it. I don't know if I've said it here. The Popeyes near my house sucks
You're
on a
not
number of
satisfied.
different. And I've tried several times, and it's just they consistently suck. So it's not like a one-off. It's I think of all the times I've been there, maybe once they didn't mess up the order or mess something up or like I've gone in there more 98% of the time I've been in there. They either mess up the order or they don't have what I want. It's like, what kind of business are you people running? So anyway, um, yeah, you say it, and in mind, I love the idea of Popeyes, but in practice, the universe just doesn't want me to go to the one near my house. It just doesn't. I mean, or I could push back against the universe, but not for this one. I'm gonna push back on other things. Yeah, I would
I,
like to get some good Popeyes, bro.
I would say Penny's Hot is a nice
Oh,
alternative. You can always it's like your all better alternative, I would say. And that's a mainstay for you folks. I don't even know how Popeyes wasn't an always thing. When we first did this fried chicken thing,
mm,
it was KFC. And the reason that it happened was that we were out at some event. We went out to like one of those family New Year's Eve things, and we ended up staying later than we thought. Like we had a really good time. It was really fun. And we are sort of driving home at 11 p.m. and everyone's like, "What's at home to eat?" And I think we were between groceries, and we were just cruising past. There was a brand new KFC that had opened near our house, and we're like going to the drive-through at 11:30. This place closed at midnight. So they gave us like I don't think it was fresh stuff, but the 12 piece was like a 16 piece because they just gave us everything that was left. Like we just said, the fry box was massive. Like it was like, you ever been to Metro and they give you the wedges and they pile those wedges up and just like putting tape around the box to hold it together. That's what the fries were like. Extra large slaw. Like it worked out really well. So that just kind of transmuted into what's more our vibe, which is Popeyes. So that's how that came about.
yeah, nobody here is gonna say no to pennies. Hot chicken. Nobody here is going to
That's
do that.
key. That's key too, right? Like making people happy on a day that, you know, everyone deserves a little bit of happy, I guess,
I,
on New Year's.
I give that place 2 thumbs up for their consistency. They are consistent. They pay attention. Um, I dig the people working there. It's usually the same people every time I go, and they pay attention. Like the last time I was there, I chose a heat level for myself for my chicken that after a couple of minutes, I'm like, oh God, I don't want to do that. I need to drop the heat level. So you've been there, I approach the counter and they're working like crazy, right? I'm like, I am really sorry to bother you, but if there's any possibility I could change my heat level from yada, yada, yada to yada, 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 it'd be amazing. And the guy looked at me, he's like, yeah, no problem. And he literally picks up like a Sharpie, goes over to my order sheet, crosses off what's there and then puts in the new number. And then I watch, and as the three other people are putting together my food, they're looking at the tag and they're adjusting. They're doing what the tag says. And I'm like, this is,
Mm-hmm.
I, you know, and when I go in there, so I cluff in there for sure. I chat them up when I order the food. I chat them up when I get the food because I do appreciate I do appreciate what they're doing, and I do see them. They're flying, right? Like they got orders coming out of the printer for the Ubers and whatever. Like
Yeah.
they're rocking. They're on. When they open to close, they're busy, that place. So I give them full credit. See, that's the difference between that place and Popeyes. Popeyes 98% of the time messes up. I would say Penny's 98% of the time is bang on. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I appreciate the consistency. I generally know what I'm gonna get. And so you're right. My family digs that place. I don't know if my wife does really, but the boys and I are. If I'm craving hot chicken, that's where I go usually.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even get it that hot. It's just good. Now, here's a really cool thing. The last time we were there, I noticed that their tenders were smaller. So usually they're very large tenders. They were smaller, so they compensate by adding more tenders to your plate. So I ordered like a two tender platter, and I had five tenders in the box because they actually stopped to think about, this is how big our two tenders would normally be in this box. And for some reason they got a batch of chicken, or they cut up their chicken and they couldn't make it that big. I don't know, but they compensated. And I'm like, this is awesome. This this is a business that I can stand behind. This is
Mm-hmm.
a business I feel comfortable pushing out on social media and saying to people, "Hey, you want hot chicken? You want to try something kind of cool? Go to Penny's, hit them up because they
I
do it
liked it.
right."
I liked it too, bro. When we were there, that was one of the first. That was like I don't know if that was like a first or a second. I don't know what version that was, but when I got to taste their chicken sandwich, like that was a cool vibe though. We were just out back, like standing. That was before we got the picnic table action, but or the portable table. But that was a good bite. That was a good bite. The only problem with that crawl was that then we did the Korean fried chicken afterwards, which wasn't not a bad choice, but it was doubling down on it. So it was a lot of fried chicken that time. Again, which I don't have any issue with eating copious amounts of fried chicken. But I think that also kind of was if we're gonna do a food crawl, we better kind of make sure we're covering different bases so you don't get super saturated with one flavor.
We definitely need to try that Chinese food place in Uptown Waterloo the next time you come. Remember the restaurant we went to that
Oh
we
yeah,
couldn't get into? Yeah, and they
hour,
didn't have
hour and a
duck
half.
or something. Yeah,
Well, yeah, because I was also craving their crispy. I think it's their crispy
crispy
duck
duck.
noodles.
Yeah,
Yeah, the crispy duck noodles. So I appreciated that dude though for saying, "Look, like it's going to be an hour 45, and by the way, we're out of the duck." Like, oh,
but at the end of the day, that's just good business,
it is.
right? Is
That
it
makes
not?
that disappointment of not having the thing I want to shove in my face. I forget about that. Now it set up a dopamine hit in the future. That's what that dude did, flat out. I'm like, this place is busy. It's like a sudden, let's just check it out. Let's make it happen. Totally makes sense. I want you to be busy, and I also want to be in here when it's busy. So I'm good with that. I was at peace. I was at peace with that disappointment.
That's cool. This is what we look for these days. I would
Mhm,
say, generally speaking, don't mess around. Just tell us, because that's look. Well, look at us now. We're both talking about the place. I can't remember the name, but we're both wanting to go back because
mhm.
the
It's
dude
on
was
a
just
list
upfront.
somewhere.
Yeah. Hey guys, you're gonna have to wait an hour and a half for takeout, and we don't have what it is you're looking for. Here's why.
Mhm.
Okay. Hey, thanks. I mean, it's bad news. It's not the news we wanted to hear, but
Yeah.
at least he wasn't like, "Yeah, yeah, we'll get you your food," and then half an hour in, we're like, "Are we getting our food? Oh, you're gonna have to wait another hour. Oh, that's not cool."
And we knew rolling up too. When we stepped in there and it was packed, the street was quiet and that was packed. I'm like, "Yeah, that's
The
okay."
other so Penny's does that too, eh? So the last time I was at Penny's, um, I ordered my meals, and when I ordered my youngest always gets one of the sandwiches, the hot mac. And when I ordered, the guy looked at me, he goes, "It's gonna be 30 minutes." And I looked at him like, 30 minutes? And he's like, "Yeah, we've got these platters that just came in on order." And like, so dude, that's not, we need to make the platters. They came in first. And I was, it was one of those nights where I was like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, put the order in. I know it's not going to be 30 minutes either, but
Mhm.
they're being like, we don't need you to lose your mind, because, you have to wait a little bit. I was like, no, no, that's good. And you know me, I've got this thing about, if I'm there watching them cook my food, so I know when it pops out, it's ready, it's fresh, it's hot. Then I get my rear end home. I love that. That's my thing with the takeout. I like to get to places before they tell me it's going to be ready, because in my experience, it's always ready before they say it's going to be, and I want my food as hot and as fresh as possible because I want to get it home myself. So I'm like, yeah, go for it. The fact that they're telling me, yeah, they've built a relationship with me that they don't know that we have this relationship, but it exists in my mind, and I see how hard they work, and I see them do their thing. So I'm good. This is what I want. This is what I want from the places I get my food from.
Do you ever is that remember the aspiring photographer that came out and talked to us?
Hmm.
Is that do you can you remember that person? Are they there still, or is that
I
just
rem-
like a
I remember that person, but I don't see them there.
you don't see them there? Okay.
I don't see them there. Which is unfortunate, I think. But there is a group of other people that I see there almost all the time. Um, yeah, I wonder what happened. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, it's good. And the Middle Eastern place right next door to Penny's, usually my wife is like, "Yeah, I'm not in the mood for hot chicken, but if you could get me some sides from the Middle Eastern place next door I'm in." Those are always the same people there. They're always the same people, and they're very kind. Um, it's funny. The lady reminds me a little bit of my mom, so it's like, getting food from my mom, which is not a bad thing. Um, so yeah, it's a nice little uh, eatery. I do want to. They got a burger place there now that I want to try, but that's kind of gonna be on the go. I think it's gonna be one of those. It's gonna be a pop up. Like, hey, I'm working till whatever time in this space. This is what I'm in the mood for. Who wants one? Not let's talk about it. No, there's going to be, sometimes there's no discussion. The only discussion that might be had is with my wife, but not always with the kids. It's like, no, this is what we're getting. If you want something, tell me now. If you don't want anything, that's fine. I won't get you anything. Like, that was like the pizza. So we got pizza last night from Papa John's, which we've tried once before, and it wasn't bad. Everybody in the house liked it. It was very filling, actually. And my wife showed me the flyer that came Thursday, maybe, and then, no, or Wednesday, and then since then, that's all that I've had on my mind was Papa John's pizza. So yesterday, I was like, okay, I'm ready to order. What are we gonna get? And the kids were like, what? What are we ordering? I'm like, we're getting pizza from Papa John's. And but I guess by the way I said it, they knew that there was gonna be no negotiation. So then I think they went to talk to Sarah about it, and she's like, "Yeah, that's what we're getting." Like her and I were on the same page, and so there's going to be no swaying her because she was like prepared to have that for dinner. So her and I chose the pizzas, and again, I went and got them. Now I will tell you, Papa John's, the Waterloo location, is right next door to Roselle's. So when I pulled into the parking lot, I'm like, okay, we got to hit Roselle's. So when I came home, I said to my wife, hey, Roselle's is right next door. If it's Filipino food. And then she was like, is there anything there that you think I'd like? And I'm like, yeah, for sure. Like, you need to look at the menu. I'm sure we could get a family platter because those platters, if you remember, I don't know if you remember, but I remember seeing them there. Like, there's all kinds of stuff in that big platter, and it could totally feed the four of us here. So I was like, you need to check out their menu because I want to hit Roselle's up. That was a great experience, and they're still rocking. Like they're still there. There are people in there getting food when I was getting my pizza. So I really hope they continue to do well.
That brings me joy knowing that they're still right. I like that. That brings me a lot of joy that they're still doing that.
And dude, only two people working, eh? Like they don't have like crazy kitchen running 8 people or whatever. There were more people in the Papa John's than there were in Roselle's, but they're still banging out all that Filipino food right out of mom's kitchen, right?
We've tried. I we Papa John's didn't work that great for us. There was something about, I think it was the sauce, dude. There was something about the sauce that you sort of, you try the new. So I mean, part of it is, okay, so if we do the fried chicken, right? So we take KFC. Let's put KFC and and Popeye side by side. So there's you can kind of rate away. I mean, you pick out whatever you either kind of say you like the two different kind of experiences, or you say one's not like the other, so that's why you're not going to go back. And part of what we couldn't do with Papa John's is we couldn't find the thing that made us kind of go, oh yeah, we want to come back because it's different. We just didn't like the different. And I think it came down to the sauce. There was something that was just not entirely happy making about the sauce.
Mm.
Maybe I got to give it another go. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe.
It's funny how that works, but sometimes it's all good and sometimes it's not, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had it go both ways, right? I've had it go where, you end up staying committed for a long time, and then it just doesn't, and you're like, okay, time to move on. I'm okay with
Mhm.
that. Ultimately, my money, my choice. Sorry, family money. But I like how you said there was no negotiation. I like that. I'll kind of go that way too. I don't when it's sort of like, Karen's a little bit more diplomatic that way. She'll kind of put it out to the kids. Okay, what do we want? And I'm the whole time kind of thinking to myself, I only want to drive to this one spot. That's all I want to do. I just want to drive there. That's it. Even though I fold.
There's there's also times where I say like I'm going between this time and this time. So somebody get it together, let me know what it is that you want.
Mhm.
And I'm usually the one that goes. It's funny though because if it's a Friday and I'm already home and my wife texts me and says, "Okay, uh, you're home, the boys are home. This is what I'm getting. So let me know what it is you want from this place." And I tell the kids, and I sometimes I hear them moan and the groan. I'm like, it's simple. You either tell me, so I text your mom, or you don't, and you know she's gonna come home with nothing for you. Like, so, like, let's go. This, and that's a McDonald's night or an A&W night because she's not gonna, go sit somewhere for half an hour after work and wait for the food. It's
Yeah.
just not. She wants to get home. Um, there are some Fridays where I'm already home and I'm like, I'll go back out. Like, no problem. Just let me know. Um, but yeah, I have a thing. I like to pick up my food. I don't like it delivered. And I like to get there before they say it's ready because I want to have my food as soon as it's ready. That's just, that's, I guess, somebody in this house would say it's part of my dysfunction. Um, but I think it's a superpower. I don't want my food sitting there for 30 minutes. I come in and I don't want any of that. I want it. I want it when it's ready.
Yeah, I'm not as
Dysfunctional,
particular that
maybe.
way. Well, no, I'm just I think it's part of it. I mean, I've also been the guy that I get home and half the order's missing. So
Yeah.
I'm more like the details. Check the bag, right? Check the bag. Did you check the bag? Did you check the bag? So I've become the yes. I've checked the bag. I've checked the bag. So
I'm a bag checker too, especially if it's like one thing that I've been rolling my eyes about is when I start to get all the custom orders. Like if I'm getting something from A&W, okay, somebody's like no mustard, the other person's no mayo, and I'm like, they're gonna mess this up, right? Like because I can check the bags, but I'm not gonna check the bags and pull the burgers out and look and see what. Like I'm not doing that. So when you say no mustard or no mayo, you're rolling the dice. If you say you want a teen burger, I'll look in the bag to make sure there's a teen burger in there, but I'm not dissecting the thing to make sure that they did it right.
mhm.
That's why I'm okay with whatever's on that burger is what I'm getting that day. And sometimes they mess it up. Like they don't even make it right. But I'm like, well, I wasn't going to pull it out of the bag and look through. So, and this is interesting to me. So when they start doing that, and that happened recently, I rolled my eyes and everybody was like, what's your problem? I'm like, are you guys kidding me? Like they're not. I'm sorry, I don't have the faith I should have maybe in these people in these places to do it the way you want. Not everybody's Roland. Right? If I worked in fast food and I got an order for no this or extra this, you better believe it's going to happen. And if I mess it up, it's going to be 1 out of 100. It's not going to be 10 out of 100 or 12 out of 100. It's going to be 1 out of 100, and I'm going to friggin' get it right. Like I'm going to hit it hard because I believe in that stuff.
Yep.
Um, so anyway, I laugh. I'm like, okay, none of this and more of that. And it's like, good luck with that. Good luck with that. But anyway, because I'm the just give it to me as it is. Starbucks is the only place, and I do laugh when this happens. My wife will say to me, "I'm getting Starbucks. Would you like your usual?" And it's like I get an iced drink with like this many pumps of sugar-free vanilla and the oat milk instead of the regular. Like I'm that guy for
Yep.
Starbucks. I totally customize until the one time I customized the perfect drink. Then I found out that they charged like $2.75 more for certain things. I'm like, they're charging us more for this change when it shouldn't be that. Like, so then I was like, I want the drink, but I don't want it with the extra $2.75. Make it so that you're not paying any more for it. My wife was like, but then you're not gonna. I'm like, I refuse
Yep.
to pay that extra $2.75 on a drink that's already like $5. F that. I don't want that. So they just laugh at me because I operate a certain way, right? But anyway, good times, good times. And look at the privilege, man. My privilege is hanging out,
Mhm.
getting Starbucks, getting
Zip it
food
up.
on Friday nights.
Zip it
Zip it
up.
up.
Yep. Zip it up.
I'm aware that not everybody lives like this. That's fine.
Yeah, it is true. It is true.
So, bro, show us the art that you have for today before we jump out and get to our last day of 2022. Oh, I like it. Okay. So you went with it. It looks like there's movement in the
But
picture.
that's my hand shaking. But yeah, I've had
No,
too
no,
many
no.
coffees.
Without the handshaking, the way that the silver's running off the first two,
Mhm.
it looks like it's in motion.
Yeah, I gave it a schmear. I took out the palette and gave
Oh,
it a.
nice. I'm
So
telling you, a coffee book, a decoded Clough art coffee book is like it just seems to me a natural progression, but I'm not the one doing the art. So
it's taking a break of in the creative process to curate and
I hear
save
you, bro.
and
I
build.
hear you.
Yeah. So and this is not a bad thing. I just
We have to pay
I
somebody to do it.
I need an assistant. I need an assistant. But I dig it. I like that I'm on the other side of just still creating this massive body of work. Like that's kind of like I like, and part of it is you only when you get to like this, there's probably an explosion. There's like a surface tension to a body of work that when it gets so big, then you have to figure out a way to kind of go more library style, right? And for right now, I'm still in the producing art stage and letting the world kind of influence me, take it in, do another thing. Like I was thinking the other day, like I'm pretty stoked. It's so this is a good example of what's of me kind of trying out different um Karen got me some art tools for Christmas, which is awesome because now I'm trying it out. Some stuff that I've never had before, like these pens. These pens are brush pens, which is really cool. I've never played with brush pens before. So ultimately, I'm just pointing out, like, I love that we can have this conversation that we do on Saturdays. And by the end of it, an hour, hour and a half, whatever, like I've had to produce something in this session. I like the scarcity of it, like having a time to have to deliver something. I like the just messing with the tools and doing different styles of art. I like trying to say to myself, I need to draw a chair today, and I try to draw a chair. Or I need to draw I was looking through some of the pieces like a vice. I'm like, okay, do a quick look online. Like some of my drawings don't even make sense to me, but I like that I've created them. It's a funny kind of mindset. So this one was all about like somehow representing 2022 transitioning to 2023 somehow. I don't know. So I like that you called out the movement and the motion of it because I intentionally tried to build that into something energized into this actual image. So something energized about it.
It looks like it's flying. I like it.
Cool.
Thanks, bro.
You're welcome, man. Happy
Um,
snappy New Year's to you and yours.
Same to you. Wishing you all the best in 2023. I hope
That's tomorrow. So
that's tomorrow. I hope 2022 was good to you, and wishing every all our listeners a happy New
mhm,
Year's and a wicked 2023.
off we go.
This was season 6, episode 16, number 234. Peace.